host, and he's filling in for Latasha Oliver, who's still on COVID-19 lockdown, and she's out in the boonies in the sticks, and she don't want to come in. Okay, so anyway,
I talked to her recently though. She's all good. Like I said, can you hear me pretty good on this thing? Cool. It's kind of going in and out. Hold on, let me adjust this thing. How about now? It's better. Everybody can hear me.
I hear you loud and clear.
All right, but anyway, yeah. Shout out to Latasha Oliver. We know you out there on your vegan island, as Mr. Pineapple would say. But yeah.
Okay. All right. So yesterday afternoon, I'm starting to post earlier than 8 and 9 o'clock at night, but I post the subject matters and topics for today, and this is about race relations, and also the second half of the show we're going to talk about gentrification, and particularly here in the Tampa Bay area and West Tampa, and eventually what's going to happen in East Tampa. So, this show is geared towards, number one, our Caucasian brothers and sisters. And notice I said brothers and sisters because that's an upgrade from cousins. And here's why.
Yeah, it is.
Because they're starting to recognize that, this white supremacy or this the skin game is all an illusion and a manipulation to divide and conquer us as a species. Mm-hmm. And so when you start to wake up and recognize that, then, you join forces, then you become brothers and sisters. Yeah. So, all right. So that was the topic. So also formerly known, this is what I stated, our Caucasian brothers and sisters, formerly known as white people. Mm-hmm. All right. There's a chapter in my book. Yeah. And so, because the name white, it separates and isolate a culture of white supremacy, which there is no such thing.
Right.
Yeah. And so, that title puts an individual in a state of mind that, I'm not human. I'm a white person, and I have special privileges, and I can look down on you, and I can manipulate you, I can use you and abuse you, and economically and psychologically oppress you without any recourse. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. And so, and the sister, Dr. Jane Elliott, who's put on several seminars with Caucasian people, explaining to them, their dilemma, and I applaud her for that. And even though she's not really dealing with the metaphysical piece,
right,
of why they need to change their ways, which means repent, but at least she's addressing the issue aggressively. And so to all my Caucasian brothers and sisters that tune in today, if you hadn't or have not watched Jane Elliott on YouTube and her seminars and exercises on how we're going to get over this racism thing, because instinctively she knows that is the corruption and the destruction of us as a species, and it's going to create some dire circumstances for our planet. Mm-hmm. Now, the planet is going to survive.
Oh, yeah. The planet is about to start healing itself of cancer right now.
Yeah. And so that, that white supremacy thing is one of the key elements. That's the cancer.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So, and again, also too, stay tuned in, because every city in the United States is being subjected to gentrification.
Yeah.
And all it is you're being outmaneuvered economically.
Yep.
Yeah. With monopoly paper money.
Yeah. It's a real monopoly game. It's about property and money.
Yeah, but the money is worthless.
The money is worthless.
So why would you give your property, the earth, that you can live on, grow food on, for some paper money based on an illusion? All right. Okay, so we're going to get to the root of that problem of, bringing our Caucasian brothers and sisters into the loop, into the realm of the species, humans of planet Earth. All right. So, there are a lot of stories and dissertations and comments and ideologies about how things started. But I'm gonna give a very basic ABC, elementary platform of what our situation and our predicament is here on the planet. Okay, so obviously by the pineal gland, somewhere back down here and here, and the melanin in your skin, that is a representation of your seniority on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to my Caucasian brothers and sisters, what happened was that like any child or any species that are given a directive on how to treat people and how to do things right and how to maintain balance, eventually you fall from grace because people or humans will get to a point where, well, we don't want to listen to the parents. And that happens every day in reality. Children, they'll listen to the parent because they understand that if they get out of line, in most cases, they're going to get ass whooping, and that ass whooping hurts. And so in this particular situation, to my Caucasian brothers and sisters, and you understand this, black people with melanin in their skin, that is a representation of their seniority. It's not a representation of superiority. It's a representation of seniority, which means this was the first design because for balance and because of the distance of our planet from our sun, you needed a certain amount of melanin in your skin to protect you from radiation. That's one of the
things. Yeah, right. That's one of them.
Okay. All right. But that's a representation. So how did non-melanated people come along? I have several theories. Some of them is that it was an anomaly or a mutation, and it had just happened. Nature created a recessive gene. I
ain't gonna interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, because your generation, of our Caucasian brothers and sisters are listening,
right?
And so I need to hear it from your perspective.
So talking about recessive genes, talking about gene codes, period. All of the variations of gene codes are very, very deliberate. None of them are accidental.
Right.
So you talking about the molecular level. Life is extremely, extremely intelligent, even on the molecular level. You ought to see how some of your cells are made up. And you're talking about billions of different codes, and they hardly ever get crossed up, during various processes. So the point I'm getting at is this. White people ain't an accident. They're here deliberately. But there's a time frame and a protocol to all of it.
Okay, so I agree with that. But here's the element and the root that we're getting at is that when that body shuts down and the soul ejects from the body,
mm-hmm.
that soul is of all the same color.
Oh yeah. Energy is energy.
It's pure energy.
Yeah, that's a fact.
All right. So the body is just a rental, and it's a temporary rental.
That's a fact.
To help that soul evolve. Now, you could be born into a Nazi or Ku Klux Klan family,
mm-hmm.
but you don't have to follow that doctrine. And then a lot of the souls in your generation are coming back saying, man, I ain't going along with that.
Right.
Yeah, that's how, because number one, I'm looking at mom and dad, Billy Bob, Uncle Bob, and their dysfunction.
Yeah.
And their dysfunction is because several things went down, especially here in the United States. You had a lot of Europeans that came here simply to check and help oppress black people.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter whether they were mentally deranged or defected or what have you. The order was sent back to Europe to say, we just need some Caucasian bodies to help to help suppress our slaves so we can continue this agenda. But we're not going to digress and keep going in that. We want to get to the root of the problem, and the root of the problem from my perspective, and then I like for you to exchange the way how you see things, is that number one, this planet was developed. Black people were the original so-called Adam and Eve.
Right.
And the Garden of Eden, and from my perspective, was not a garden; it was a lavatory.
Right.
And then, but it was a isolated lavatory, because when our species was developed, they had to be contained and protected because the species needed time to evolve, because there were lions, tigers, and bears out there that they could not compete against. And so anyway, let's get back to the falling from grace.
Okay.
And the falling from grace precipitated by our ancestors or our guardians or our supreme being.
Wait. Who fell from grace?
The original people.
Oh, us.
Yeah.
In other words, us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because just like in any process of even, of you as a child, you growing up, you have to learn from your parents. They're going to tell you the rules, and at some point you're going to say, well, I'm tired of following these rules. I'm going to do it my way. And then you go out and you get burned. And then you can get burned in many different ways. You can get with the wrong woman and get burned, or you can want to drive cars and real fast and have accidents. So the issue here is the falling from grace. It happened. So Caucasian people were then used and manipulated because of the recessive gene and given a technological advantage.
Yeah.
Not only from the extraterrestrials that were allowed to come here to give them that technological advantage, but also the religious institutions that withheld pertinent information to help that particular gene or recessive gene evolve.
Well, the religion was a technological advancement.
Yeah, okay.
Technically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now this is very important. The religion omitted reincarnation intentionally, and that's the key root, because again, and this may sound repetitious on this show, but it's required, because you have to try to say it in different languages to get people to understand it from different perspectives.
Right.
Yeah. All right. And so the mind, in terms of I need to survive and I need an edge, because here I have this recessive gene, and this man's or this woman's got this melanated gene, and they're outmaneuvering me. So it was very easy for, again, from my perspective, for an extraterrestrial that needed to divide this whole planet and control our species. It was very easy for them to convince, listen to you Caucasians, I'm going to give you a technological advantage,
right,
in exchange for your loyalty to a very hideous agenda of death and destruction, lies and deception.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I had an experience back in 1997 when a mile-wide UFO flew over Phoenix, Arizona.
You say when?
It was in 1997.
97.
Yeah, and I flew out to, I was prepared writing our book, The Second Coming. Right. So I flew out to Phoenix, Arizona, and because I heard that there was a MUFON or UFO convention being held to talk about.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Right.
I remember that.
So I flew out there, and I met this, this group of people, Caucasian people, talking about, their experiences, and particularly the abduction.
Right.
All right. So now where I'm going with this is you got to pay attention to where I'm going with this, because white supremacists, the ones, now we got Caucasians that are getting it. And that's why I'm referring to them as brothers and sisters instead of cousins.
Right.
All right. But you still have some of them that wants to still maintain the illusion. And so, what I did when I flew out and I met with this woman, and her initials were CH. And any of you UFO enthusiasts, I can't remember the documentary, but she was in a couple of documentaries talking about her abductions and her experience with the grays and the tall whites.
Okay.
All right. So now, those grays and tall whites, they exist in another solar system.
Right.
All right. And they exist in another solar system because wherever solar system they come from, their planet is a little further out than our planet in relation to its sun. All right. So that saying that is that they took the same development path that this planet took, but it was a different one because of the orbital path and the distance from the sun. So they didn't require the same degree of melanin that we had on this planet. So they evolved and the same way we did, and they had to go through all of these changes, but they had a civilized race, the grays and the tall whites. Now, there's some other theories about that. Some of them came from our future on Earth, millions of years in the future after we have lost, or destroyed ourselves and mutated, so that we're still going to examine that. But I'm going to stick with this theory that those grays and those small whites. Tall whites. Small whites too.
Oh, they had small whites?
Yeah. So they took advantage of the most advanced ETs that really run this planet, giving them the authority to come to Earth and go ahead and test us because we fell from grace.
I don't think they took advantage. I think it's difficult to slide any subterfuge through at that level of intelligence.
Okay.
Right. I feel where you're going with it. I think the quote unquote fall from grace was also deliberate. In other words, it was a voluntary process we wanted to go through.
Absolutely. It's nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's required. So everything we're going through right now is required for us to reach a high level of consciousness. Yeah. And then we have a choice. Do we want to continue with nature, with the mathematical design of what the Most High, the Creator, gave us with the development of this solar system? Or do we want to create an artificial system, AI, artificial intelligence, and get away from nature and create a controllable environment, right now, this is the precipice where we are. Yep. We have the choice to continue on with an artificial society, or we can get back to nature. Mm-hmm. All right. So, but I still got to deal with this root of the problem here. Okay. So, when I went out to Phoenix, I sat down and I asked the man. I said, "Listen, my name is Andre Hill. I'm writing a book, about reality and religions and all of that. But I need to talk to someone, that's had an experience." Because I'm in that phase of regaining my memory, but I needed validation. So he said, "Oh, go talk to that woman over there. She's had several abductions," and I looked at her, and I said, "Okay," because she had something else going on. She was somewhat telepathic as I was walking up to the event. But she sat there and she watched me the whole time. And then the guy ended up referring me to her. And so she explained to me all of her experiences about how her family had been abducted, how she'd been on alien ships, how they artificially inseminated her, and how she even experienced having children, from these extraterrestrials, and then the fetus being extracted and developed wherever they came from. Mm-hmm. So in other words, whatever's going on their planet, they're having problems reproducing. So they need a fertile planet like Earth where they drop their seed off here to be able to continue to reproduce. All right. But now, here's where I'm going with this to those clans, the Ku Klux Klan, or the white supremacists, or those Nazis who think that they're going to continue with this agenda of dominating, suppressing, and creating artificial system, the same way Hitler, what he was trying to achieve. Okay, so in this woman's despair and the horror of what they had to do to her to extract this fetus and test her body and all of that sort of thing, what she explained to me at some point in that situation during those examinations by these extraterrestrials, she said that, but then there were the Browns. Mm-hmm. And I said, the Browns? She said, yeah. They were aliens that were able to come on those ships and override the technology of the grays and the tall whites. I said, okay, what? She said, they were dark-skinned aliens, right, with skin like elephants, and they had beautiful eyes like starbursts, and they comfort me. Okay. All right. So that's all throughout the Bible about, angels comforting, and I'm going like, okay, they comforted you. How? First of all, how did they get on the grays in the tall white ship?
Told you it wasn't no manipulation. They were working in cahoots just like they did in WWE, the wrestling.
So those Browns had their technology had to be more advanced if they were able to intercede and come on the ship and say, listen, peace be still. We're here to comfort you. Even though these grays and these aliens, they sticking you with these needles, injecting things, sperm and stuff up in you and doing these horrible things. But don't worry, you'll be all right. So the point I'm getting at is that just like Hitler failed, and he had the technology now, but there's something that was override on that technology by the true ancestors of the true superior beings of this planet. Mm-hmm. They had that power. So to those Caucasian brothers and sisters that have other uncles, cousins that want to maintain this white supremacy, is not going to be allowed, because that technology that the Browns have is more superior. Yeah. It's more advanced. And they allowed the grays and the tall whites to come here under a treaty or a special arrangement to do these things, just to test, to see how long it was going to take the original children of the planet to put away their petty differences, and their ego trips and all of that, to understand the value of those three basic laws. All men are created equal. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and love your fellow humans unconditionally. All right.
Indeed.
Okay, so this is hope. So look it up. A lot of you look at those UFO shows and what have you, and but the initials of this woman was CH, and she was a few years older than me, and I just heard she passed about 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, I can't remember the name, but I saw her face, I said, that's the woman that I spoke with that gave me that information that changed my life. To help me to understand that the most advanced beings were black. Yeah. Just like the little Caucasian boy who died and he went into heaven or whatever, well, not heaven, but he crossed over. Right. And he said he came back, he was a little racist. He was raised up in a racist family. He said, Jesus is black. Jesus is black. So this is what I'm saying to my Caucasian brothers and sisters, all right? Those bodies are rentals. You might have been black in the previous life. You might have been Native American in the previous life before then, but each time you rent a body, it's going to give you a particular trial, a challenge to help your soul evolve so that you can learn to respect the basic laws of nature. All right. So kicking the ball off to you, my son, and you was raised up in Nashville, Tennessee. You were born in Washington D.C., but you was raised up in Nashville, Tennessee. When you went to school, desegregation was in full flow. When I came along, it was just starting.
Right.
So tell me about your experience with young Caucasians and why you think that they're not, in most cases, are going to go along with continuing with this white supremacy nonsense.
Well, you skipped over a part. I know I was raised in Nashville, but remember, when we first moved to Tennessee, we moved to Mount Juliet. It was out there, which is like a suburb of Nashville, and that was my indoctrination into racism out there. It was very subtle, and it's like it didn't dawn on me what it was until I got a little older. And so again, the point was, this was a smaller town outside of Nashville. I say about 20 miles outside of Nashville.
Yeah,
and not too far, but it was on the outskirts. But and it was just one of those towns that was traditionally racist. But anyway, so at some point you was like, hey, I want him to go to schools in the inner city. Remember you said that?
Yeah.
So eventually I went to y'all started driving me in the morning to inner city schools, so where I was around my people much more. And so by the time I got into, I mean, to be honest with you, it was really high school, because for the most part from second to eighth grade, I was going to schools where it was primarily us. By the time I got to high school, this is where I developed, I got the chance to experience not only Caucasian people, but other ethnicities as well. So my experience in high school with Caucasian folks was, now, regardless of, where the Caucasian person was from, he or she had to develop, or did develop, camaraderie with young black kids over the, course of time in school. I'm not absolutely sure, what their situation was when they went home, but when they came to school, there was somewhat of an assimilation into our culture from them. Straight up. So, what I did notice this as well. There were a few of them that, they got involved with us, as friends, whatever the case. Realized that we are very, very dynamic people, and that they were not going to be able to compete in particular areas. So some of them did start banding together. I remember that, right? But for the most part, a lot of them at that age were, since we were not out in the world and truly competing for any resources, you feel me? There was a camaraderie while we were at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can imagine, getting older, growing up, they lenses on life started to become a little bit more clear on what's going on out here. Right. So, because once we get older, at this point, it's a matter of gathering resources and sustaining them, and the competition between you and somebody else for the most part. So, I don't know. It's such a vast topic. It's going to be hard for me to kind of cover it in these last little 2 minutes before we go to break.
All right. So when we come back on break, so would you say that maintaining white supremacy from your generation is dying? It's a dying art?
It's definitely dying.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to break. I got two very poignant issues to bring up when we come back on how that's going to have an effect on going forward, and also what I said was skin color is no longer, and white supremacy is no longer issue. These entities, ETs, are switching to another component, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. Yeah, so to our Facebook.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other
and had
in
no
no time.
idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm
don't
and
ignore
keep to the
this
plan.
message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
All right, so we're back. We're still dealing with race relations and why, number one, the title white people and racism is no longer relevant. And here's what's happening. So those same ETs, or a different group maybe now at this point, they still want to hold on to extracting resources from our planet. I didn't go into those details. As long as we maintain, as long as we are divided as a species, any other species that wants to take advantage of our planet will use these tactics to prolong their availability or access to our resources, whether it's body specimens, whether it's oil, gold, not oil. Their technologies don't need that antiquated stuff anymore. Or whether there's certain mining materials necessary for their advanced technology. So they're going to still try to extend that. And so the white supremacy illusion is no longer relevant because now they just need souls. And they need souls to participate in their agenda. All right. And so that's why you have, like when we talked about Mississippi spies, you have black people that sign up and say, look, I know what you're trying to do, but I just want to survive. So break me off. I'll sell out my people, for some money. So it's moving more into that direction now because, and it was evident by when our Caucasian brothers and sisters partook in the protests and act as human shields to prevent a slaughter in the streets, which would have led to what you call a race war. And that was the objective. And there's still Caucasians, Nazis and Ku Klux Klan, that they feel that the only way they're going to maintain this illusion is to stimulate a race war. And that's what all this murdering and all of these sort of things is going on. And that kicks us into martial law, which would then help perpetuate artificial intelligence, AI. Okay, so hold on. Before we go deeper, because there's some other points, I got to talk about one of our sponsors. That's L Finger Licking soul food, finger looking good soul food. And they're located at 2302 East 7th Avenue, right north, east of 22nd Street on 7th Avenue in Ybor City. And, all of the black businesses have been suffering from the virus situation. And usually we get hit harder because we don't have banks and lines of credit to sustain us. And not only black folks, a lot of Caucasian companies are taking a dive. Yeah. And this is the point I'm trying to get to in this continued oppression. I don't care whether you black, Asian. Now your business is being affected by this virus, and you got to up the ante on selling your soul to stay in this game, and it doesn't matter. But anyway, so we want to support these black businesses. We want to go to Al's Finger Licking Soul Food at 2302 East 7th Avenue. That they're open just on Saturdays and Sundays right now because everybody's trying to get momentum to get back in the game. They open at 11:30. The food is very good. It's very good food. The decor is a beautiful restaurant. I mean, there's some pictures on the wall of all the entertainers. There's a very nice seating, and we want to start recirculating this money back in the black community. So I'm asking black folks to support them, but I'm asking our Caucasian brothers and sisters to also support them. Go out in numbers so that they can get the momentum to expand the days that they need confidence. They need to know that you're going to start coming in on a regular basis so they can go ahead and start establishing those hours that they were open. And, so we need, just like the stimulus check, they need stimulus customers to come in. Yeah. So go out to Al's Finger Lickings Good Soul Food right across the street from what was the name of that bar?
The Broadway. The
Broadway bar on the east side of the 7th Avenue, Ybor City area. And go by there today after 11:30. Order your food. Don't go to them other restaurants, them other fast food restaurants, because that food's gonna kill you. Right. If you're gonna spend some money, if you don't feel like cooking today, go to El Soul's Food on 2302 East 7th Avenue and tell them you heard about it on the show. Because when you tell them that means they'll advertise with us, and that means that we can stay on the air. And then when we advertise, when we get more sponsors, that means we can bring more knowledge and more truth. And get other businesses to do the same. If you have a business and you hitting hard times from this PLAN demic that was planned by these ETs that's manipulating white supremacy, and if you need some help, you need to increase your customer base through this broadcast, then get in touch with us. You can go online to upall.com. That's upall.com, and register. Tell them you want to be a sponsor on this show, and we'll get back with you. Leave your phone number, leave your email address. That's upall.com, and we will call you and work out some sort of plan to promote your business. All right, but in the meantime, we got to eat. You want some good soul food? Go by Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food at 2302 East 7th Avenue. And I have a telephone number, and I'm gonna call it one more time out at the end of the show. But it's 813-515-5036. Give them a call. Put your order in. It'll be ready when you get there, or go in. It's fine dining. It's a nice location, beautiful location. And they do have outside, out back, if you want to plan some events. It meets all the COVID virus requirements because it's an open space. There's a shed. There's also a stage if you got a band and you want to perform. It's a beautiful location. So get over there, ask for Jackie. She'll give you a tour of the place and order your food. All right. So here's the deal. Okay, so the title white people and racism is no longer relevant now, because this is all about recruiting troubled souls. So that's why I gave the reference to the Mississippi spies. And so if you're a troubled soul and you've been starved out, or you feel that you're not adequate as a human being to compete, then you're really easy to influence to do crazy things. So these ETs, they're not looking just for Caucasian people to do their bid. They're looking for anybody. Anybody wants to sign up for some monopoly money. Yeah. And so that's the issue. All right. Any other comments on that particular topic before I go into gentrification?
No. Let's go ahead and get into gentrification.
All right.
Get into it.
Okay. So if you have a question or about what we're saying, and I'm gonna bring it all into a composition of understanding human beings. This is about your planet. This is about your soul. This is about your children and leaving a legacy. And it's time for you to come together. Stop voting for agendas that's going to give you special privilege based on some nonsense, the color of your skin, or whether you LGBT, or whether you a Kappa or in a sorority. Stop voting for that. Those kind of agendas. Vote for politicians that wants to restore the natural balance of this planet, and that's critical right now. Discriminating each other because of our shortfallings, or that is no longer on the agenda right now. So anyway, so going into gentrification, any leaders. The gentrification plan exists all over the United States, and it was put in place back in the 80s from what I experienced when Ronald Reagan and George Bush moved into the White House. Washington, D.C. was subjected to gentrification, and there was a well-developed plan of bringing drugs into the community. The plan was also bringing investors to come in with your equity. And monopoly money to buy properties, hold on to them, and then get into the local governments and help and assist and underwrite politicians that will follow through with their agenda. Even back in the 80s in Washington, D.C., the existing mayor, Marion Barry, was a good mayor. And it was evident by the fact that he kept getting reelected, even after he was set up in a room smoking drugs with this young lady, and he wasn't there for the drugs. He was there for the young lady, but they built it up. It was all designed to discredit him, and so there were certain things done to remove this man and his administration that was stabilizing Washington, D.C. and maintaining the so-called chocolate city concept. And because white supremacy and Ronald Reagan and George Bush at that time had a different agenda, with the New World Order agenda, which was based on white supremacy, which is really based on a small percentage of mentally deranged people that want to be gods on the physical plane. All right. So what you have to do, this is my recommendation to if you're in Alabama, Mississippi, or wherever, what you have to do if you're going to reverse gentrification, you have to. It's taken us 8 years to get a movement going in place. But what you have to do is reach out to other leaders, have a sit down, and do like Quincy Jones did when he brought all those egos together to do "We Are the World" video. Put a can out front and that says deposit egos right here, and then have everybody, all your leaders, to come in and let's sit down and come up with a comprehensive plan. Now, we tried it several times here in Tampa, and still you have certain leaders that, well, I can't risk being a part of fairness. I'm going to go ahead and play this white supremacy game. I mean, these are black leaders, and I'm going to go to the slave master and ask for favors. You know, you're going to still have that, and you're going to have to weather the storm with them because they're not going to change their ways. Again, if you were listening to that the early part of the show, the soul it has no color, but it has different agendas. And when it reincarnates, it's either going to have an agenda of balance or it's going to have an agenda of selfishness. And so you're going to have that with Caucasians that want to maintain Nazism or the Ku Klux Klan or Confederacy, but you also among black folks, and and some of those leaders are going to come in there, and they're going to want to get special privileges. And I just experienced one just recently who set up his own little organization, and he circumvented bringing black folks together, bringing these leaders together. And then now he's getting grant monies from the establishment, based on the fact that no, I'm not going to be a part of a collective of black folks that's going to really help their community. So it still exists, but you have to recognize that. And when they you have to recognize them when they come to the meeting. They're going to cause dissension, and they're never going to get anything done. So one of the main things you have to do in your agenda is have to set up a menu of things to prevent gentrification, and all of you have to come together and put your egos aside and partner with other nonprofits to underpin this agenda. And so some of you may not have a nonprofit organization. You may just have a name, and you may have a following. So there are ways that you can partner with nonprofits and say, look, we're going to bring these numbers together. I'm going to bring my following, and we're going to follow the lead on voting as a collective and working as a collective. And when one nonprofit go apply for grant money, and grant money meaning you going back to corporate America and say, we built you, corporate America, and so we just want to return on our investment. We want you to return and reinvest back in our community instead of just taking money out of our community. So these are kind of concepts and things that you have to discuss. But when you come together, you have to partner and submit grant applications into corporate America. They get it right now. And do it as a partnership. Don't do it as I'm just going to get mine. That if the corporate America, if corporate America just invests in you as an individual, they're perpetuating white supremacy. So, but when you go as a group and say I'm going to handle rental or establishing housing or health and food, each group has a particular discipline. Then you do a package grant. You all work together and submit it in as a collective and say, this is what we're going to do. And corporate America, if you don't comply, if you're going to keep continuing to isolate and just give grant money to a few people who is beholding or compromisable, then that's when you recognize that corporation is still playing a game of white supremacy. But if they say, yes, we see you have a partnership going with several groups and several disciplines that's going to have a profound effect on your community, then yes, we will grant you money because we think this is going to work. And so that's how you put it. Now you've attended many meetings and you've experienced those anomalies. So how did you coming from your generation? Did you look at it and say, man, these old heads are still playing games?
Yeah, of course. From my generation, we are looking at the older generation like this. Right now, we're at the prime time in our lives, and we are stepping into the road of being the leaders of the communities because at this point, we have a lot of experience, and we still have some youth and energy to make some things happen. So when we are trying to build, the things that we want from the elders is very two simple things. Is some advice and counseling on when we're tackling a particular project, when we're going down a different, particular avenue. some advice to say, okay, if we run into a roadblock or a hurdle, how do we jump over it or get behind or get around it? The other thing that we would need usually is resources. That's about it. So in other words, I'm not trying to say, hey, elders, y'all got to sit on the sideline and let us handle that. But to some extent, I am. Right? To some extent, I am. What my generation is looking to the older generation is to say, hey, our time, we did what we've done. It's time for us to, step aside and assist your generation on building the future or building the platform and foundation for the next generation. So, at all of the meetings that I've attended, just watching, elders engage with each other, what I see is, I still see the attitude of communion, where y'all get together and y'all, like to go through the back and forth with each other. Whereas, my generation just simply wants to outline the solution and get to it. Right. So, so when somebody comes in and, they obviously have an ulterior motive, it's very obvious to my generation. We can see it a mile away, right? Because we're like, okay, so he's been talking for about 15, 20 minutes, but he's bouncing around the solution that we started this conversation off with. So it's very easy to say, okay, so we know what he came in here for. He came in here just to waste time. But what we noticed from the elders is y'all will engage that character for too long. Right? And we like, yo, it's like, now mind you, we sitting to the side like, okay, if we say something to him, then that's disrespectful. Right?
Okay.
If we say something, we like, man, he's sitting here wasting time. If we say that, that is us disrespecting the elders. And also if we say hey elders, y'all gonna sit here and let him waste time, that's still disrespectful. So it is an interesting dynamic, and this is where you see, our generation, we slide to the side to whatever capacity, and we say, all right, so here is the outline. Here's the solution that we was trying to get to. Let's go ahead and draw up some points on how we're gonna get there, and then we'll come back to the meeting next week and submit that to the entire group and see how they feel about it.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. All right, so dealing with your generation. Okay, so getting specifically to the fundamentals. Our nonprofit organization, which is Urban Progress Alliance.
Right.
Okay. So here's what: if you're out there in the community, and then if you're not in the Tampa Bay area, if you're in another area, we're going to assist any nonprofit that's tired, that wants change, and we can share with what we've gone through over the last 8 years to get to this point. Okay, and so what I'm gonna tell the other organizations and other people in your generation, if you have an idea of a service that you want to offer to the community, you don't have to go in initially. I got to go get a nonprofit. I know the IRS is just overloaded. They're just taking the money in, the $600.
Right.
Come up with the idea, partner with an organization like ours. Go to our website, upall.com. Come in with your idea, what you want to do into your community. You know the people in your neighborhood. They need jobs, or they need a business, or they need some housing, or food, medicine. And if you feel that you can, bring that to the community, come partner with UPA. We will set you up as an agency under our nonprofit, and show you step by step how to implement that in your neighborhood. All right? And that's how you get things done. And so then when you go out and start helping people in your neighborhood, and you go to them and say, hey, we bring you some resources, but we need to get behind this candidate, or we need to do business with this corporation because they are reciprocating. They are bringing back our dollar back into our community. This is how we move forward.
Right.
All right. So we're still putting the call out. If you want to get something going on in your neighborhood, go to upall.com. sign up, tell them you want to be a community captain or you want to start a service, you need some help, you need some financing, do that, and we will help you out. And then then people all over the world and all over the country that need to do the same thing, we're going to share the technology to how we got to this point. I mean, we're still struggling, but if we're going to share some things with you that we've already experienced. If you're just getting started and you want to be the lead organization in your community, just go to upaall.com and call us up, and we will help you out. Also, don't forget, go to L's. I'll be at 11:30. Go by L's Finger Licking Soul Food at 2302 East 7th Avenue. And we're looking forward to, we will see you again next Saturday at 9 a.m.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.